Shocking news from Sydney, Australia, over the last week or so, with not one but two incidents of stabbings, of attacks, one in a mall and one in a church, which led to loss of life and a community very much in shock. Joining us on the program, Australian correspondent Craig Heilmann. Craig, kia ora. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure, Andrew. Great to see you and be with you again.
This is, tough news. I mean, one of these incidents, each of these incidents, of course, is horrific. Both of them happening so close together, not necessarily linked. But yeah, talk us through the events that unfolded and the situation we're talking about here.
Yeah, so the Bondi attack was in a shopping mall, and the man involved was a Queenslander, but he was down in Bondi. He wandered his way through the mall quite peacefully and slowly, and progressively attacked and assaulted, a bunch of women, killed, about 6 people, attacked a baby as well, stabbed a baby. There is a horrendous story about the mum of that baby, who was a much loved doctor, who was holding onto the baby. She got stabbed, the baby got stabbed. She threw the baby into the arms of a couple of men that were obviously there present, and then proceeded to fall down herself, and she eventually passed away, which was just tragic. And this little baby is now out of ICU and is recovering. But what a story, and what a memory, and that's going to mark her life forever, to know that mum died in that way. So a guy who obviously had mental health issues, he was on the radar screen of the authorities, but the mental health support's not great these days, and he just seemed to have a penchant for killing these women, and he went about it quite systematically, methodically, and slowly and ruthlessly. And there were many brave people that tried to intervene in that. Then the other stabbing, of course, was the Assyrian church leader who had some words to say about Islam, and a young man, a very young boy, an adolescent boy, charged him basically during a sermon in their church, and just proceeded to stab him brutally. And so there were riots on the streets, and not good news at the moment in Sydney particularly, and in Australia.
Really, really tragic stuff. And of course, our hearts go out to all of those people directly affected, although in some ways the impact of this is for the whole city, one of the largest city in Australia. And I think we could, partly because we can all identify with this. We've all been to malls. This is a place where we believe we should be safe. And in a church setting where people had gathered together to pray. There's echoes, of course, of these awful mosque shootings that happened in New Zealand quite recently as well. This should be safe spaces in our communities, and they certainly weren't on this occasion. Talk to us about how people are responding in Sydney. What's the broader impact of this on folk there?
Oh, Andrew, I think people are just genuinely devastated, genuinely kind of like, there's so much going on that, how could this happen in Australia? This is just so unknown. There's so many things now that are so unknown and unusual, but they're becoming much more common and mainstream. And I think that's the sense of shock that people have, is how could these things go on? And of course, they're magnified now because images are available almost immediately on social media or the media, which probably in the past, we have issues described as like I don't recall seeing too much footage of the Port Arthur shootings, for example, from Tasmania. But if it had happened today, we'd probably have a live stream of it. So I think it's confronting for people. I think it's very shocking, and people can easily place themselves in the shoes of anyone going to a shopping mall and going about their daily lives, and this is what they encounter, and it's it really is terrifying. I think for people, it shakes them in their core beliefs, and it makes them question what's really going on.
Absolutely awful situation. And honestly, I'm hesitating on saying this, Craig, because it's pretty difficult to see a bright side. But I know some commentators have said that whilst this is absolutely shocking and awful, it could have been so much worse were it not the fact that Australia's got some pretty robust gun laws. Somebody in a mall with a knife is terrible. Somebody in that same mall with the same motivation with a semi-automatic rifle would have resulted in a lot more loss of life.
Definitely. And look, Australia does have very strict gun laws now after the Port Arthur episode. And Yeah, I mean, I think it could have been a whole lot worse with guns involved, but it's still horrible to contemplate what one guy can do with a knife.
Yeah.
And obviously, everybody else, other than the police officer involved, everybody else at the mall is sort of unarmed, and
Yeah.
there's no way. I guess one of the questions is, could people have immobilized this guy quicker? Could he, 6 or 7 guys, if they jumped on him, obviously with risk of harm to themselves, but could they have taken him down? There's many questions about it. People tended to just flee to get away from him, obviously,
Yeah.
but there were some brave people who approached him and tried to calm him down and get him to drop the knife. But he just seemed to ignore those people and just pursue individual women that he wanted to harm. So it is very confronting. It's very shocking. But as you say, much worse if guns had been involved.
Now, your home state is Tasmania. You
Yep.
mentioned beforehand the awful shootings in Tasmania and Port Arthur, and the
Yep.
consequence, well, part of the consequence of that was these stricter gun laws. But I suppose take us back as we our thoughts and prayers with the people of Sydney, of course, a much bigger
Mhm.
community than Port Arthur. But talk
Mhm.
to us about the impact that a mass tragedy like this has on a community and the way in which people feel and respond.
Yeah, I think psychologically for people, I'm not sure Tasmania's ever gotten over that event. It's just so out of the mainstream. When we see these things happen, we assume this is what happens in America
Yeah,
because of the gun laws and the freedom around guns. You never assume it's going to happen in Australia, and now even without guns, seeing these dreadful events and episodes with a knife, I think people just can't quite grab it. I think they just can't quite process how this can go on. Australia, I think, thinks of itself as a fairly decent place where people are, they sort of look out for each other. I mean, you see the best of Australians during the floods and things.
yeah,
People rally in their communities and clean up each other's homes, and charitable giving is off the charts whenever there's some major crisis anywhere in the world. Australians have dipped their hand in their pocket. So I think, fairly big-hearted, good-hearted people. And I think when these things happen, it sort of makes you question, well, who are we really, and
yeah, yeah.
what's our culture really about? And I just think it's the unknown for people. I just think it's very hard for people to wrap their minds around the gravity of it. And it's not hard for them to put themselves in the shoes of that doctor, for example, with the baby.
Yeah.
They could see themselves that something like that happening to them, and it just, I think, just devastates them.
Well, certainly thoughts and prayers with those people directly affected, and well, those people on the fringes of that who are still struggling and grieving and processing what this means for them. Craig, tough topic, but thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. Kia ora, my friend.
Bless you, mate. Great to see you. God bless.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.